Hello, I'm David DeCosmo. Welcome to ECTV Live. I'm joined by my co-host, Rusty Fender. Rusty?
Good to see you, David.
Welcome. Hey, we're going to have you wear two hats today because a lot of people think that Rusty's income totally depends on this program.
Well, this would put me in a higher tax bracket, so I have to divest.
We've got to divest.
My
income. By
this
way,
is about his fifth hat that he wears, I think, isn't it?
By way of clarifying everything, Rusty does do some work for the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation.
That is my full-time job, actually. I know this gentleman.
And yes, our guest today,
even before that.
Yeah. Our guest today is James May, who is one of those folks that in the public relations area, public information area, that tries to keep us abreast of all the things that are happening with PennDOT, throughout the year. And as this new year gets underway, we wanted to bring Jim in to talk about some of the things that we're going to see, some of the things we're going to deal with in 2018 with regard to the Department of Transportation. One of the things that hits my mind immediately, of course, doesn't really deal with PennDOT, but it does have to do with transportation. That's the fact that the tolls on the Pennsylvania Turnpike have just gone up again, so you want to be aware of that.
And people don't know that the Turnpike owes PennDOT $450 million.
They do. None of that goes to me, but they do owe PennDOT money. And
that's right.
So,
for a lot of
and we have a very good relationship with them. That hasn't always been the case.
It's true.
But we are really trying to work with them to come up with some ways that are beneficial to both PennDOT and the Turnpike, but then also beneficial to the motorists as well.
And people don't realize the extent. People think of the little Northeast extension from Norristown to Clark Summit, but it runs from the Allegheny Valley to the New Jersey Bridge.
Which, of course, is the main portion.
Exactly right.
And people don't realize that it is a separate entity. It's its own separate commission. A lot of people assume that if it's a yellow or orange truck, whether it's a county truck, a local truck, municipal, a PennDOT, Turnpike, that they're all the same. The Turnpike is a separate organization. Now, if people call me with a question on the Turnpike, as they do quite often, we take their question and try to help them with it, but it is a complete separate entity from PennDOT.
Well, the Pennsylvania Turnpike was, in essence, an interstate before the interstate system existed. Now, you, as PennDOT, have to deal with an interstate system that is extremely a benefit to our area in terms of being able to go wherever you want to go at a decent rate of speed, but by the same token, it presents the problems of covering all those miles of interstate highway.
And I cover what's called District 4, and so that's 6 counties here in northeastern Pennsylvania: Lackawanna, Luzerne, Pike, Susquehanna, Wayne, and Wyoming counties. So those are the six counties here in District 4. We have more interstate miles than any other district across the region. There are, here's something for when you think of government, there are 11 engineering districts numbered 1 through 12. So, classic government, because there's no District 7. They were combined a while.
So in your district, you've got 81.
We have 80, 81, 84, and 380, plus the Turnpike. So, yeah, we have 4 interstates here, 80, 81, 84, and 380.
And just think, 67 counties in Pennsylvania. Most of those counties don't even have, they're not even near an interstate.
Oh, that's true.
They're all here. So this is the hotbed of activity. Even in Philadelphia, there's only a couple. There's 76 and the offshoots, 47. But this is the main area for transportation.
Now, as bad as 2018 started in terms of a bitter, freezing cold, we were blessed to not have a tremendous amount of snow that would hamper keeping those highways open.
Right.
Of course, that could change at a moment's notice.
Yes, it can. Yes, and one of the things that we dealt with this year was the just really, really bitter cold. And a couple things that happen when you're dealing with cold as opposed to the ice. One, it's really hard on the equipment, just like on your home vehicle, your car. I had my wife's car, and yesterday the battery was going because it's just so cold right now. But the other thing that we've been dealing with a lot this year is water main breaks. There was just another one that took place this morning. You probably get calls on these all the time.
All the time.
And we had last weekend, or a couple weekends ago, we had 3 in the weekend. And where this impacts us then is we end up sending our crews out, and they're just salting one area again and again and again as the water's coming up. Because the concern with those from a motoring standpoint for the public is if the road is completely clear and you're driving along at 35, 40, whatever, because these normally happen in a more urbanized area. And so if you're driving along at normal speeds of 30, 45 miles an hour and the road is clear, and then all of a sudden you hit hit one spot where it's just a sheet of ice, that presents some real serious, dangerous situations. So when we get the call, we can't wait for whoever the water company to go out and actually get their crews out there and fix it. We have rangers who are working through the night and crews working through the night. So as soon as that call comes in, we go out and those guys just start salting that area until the crews are able to get there, just to keep it safe for the public. So that's one of the unique things that we've been dealing with this year with the really cold temperatures.
That's interesting.
It's a big operation. People, James mentioned the Rangers, but the Rangers, there's someone 24 hours a day. When I was a kid, I used to think when it started to snow that somebody said, hey, it's snowing outside, let's go up and get into a snowplow and drive. There are people 24 hours a day in all the counties, and then they make the determination who they're going to send out depending on the severity of the storm moving. But the Rangers are there all the time, around the clock.
I had even mentioned to you in one of our last programs in December, we talked before the program, that I was driving up 81 heading north. And
there was a truck in the middle.
Near Penobscot, there was a truck just sitting there sort of waiting. There wasn't anything happening at that time.
Oh, right.
But the prediction was.
Well, and a lot of that came from the now infamous Valentine's Day storm years ago.
February 14th.
Because what was happening in that storm was people were stuck on the all over the place, but they were stuck on the interstate. And if all of the vehicles are stuck there on the interstate because of the ice, you can't get a plow truck. We don't have some secret way to fly in a plow truck in front of all the vehicles. Yeah. And so all the vehicles were stuck, and once they're stuck there, you can't get the plow in front of them, so they remain stuck, and it just becomes this vicious cycle. So one of the lessons from that is we realize we have got to make sure that we never get behind a storm again. And we will hear that complaint every so often. Somebody will call in, well, it's not supposed to snow until 4 o'clock this afternoon, and at 3 o'clock there was somebody sitting out there, and then they just, yes, they are. And it's not because they're just looking for something to do and sit in their truck. The reason is because they have got to make sure that they have the salt in the truck, that they have the equipment, the personnel there, and that they're pre-positioned out there along the interstate so that once it starts, that's when you start going out. And many times it's quite a distance to go from wherever you pick up your salt. It might be in Dunmore and you have to go up to Scott Township or somewhere else. And so we can't get into a situation where you get behind the storm like happened in Valentine's Day.
It's such a complex process, too.
It is.
That Valentine's Day storm was 4 degrees above zero and pouring rain. The ice was 18 inches thick in some areas. Wow. They went through grader blades on Interstate 78 when that was stopped all the way from Allentown to Harrisburg.
Let me just say, as a former daily newsman who has spent 2 nights stranded on interstate highways in this area, that is from 7 o'clock at night until at least 6 the next morning. And one of those occasions low on gas, by the way. Please keep that policy in effect, because those were very, very horrible times. It is years back.
That was the bad year, St. Patrick's Day storm, and then the St. Valentine's Day storm. That was back to back, if you remember.
Yeah,
and it is a good reminder. So one thing you said that reminded me of 2 things. One, make sure that you keep your car filled up with gas. Just yesterday, I was driving up the Morgan Highway and saw a car pulled over, and it was probably 8 o'clock at night, and it was freezing. And so a guy there with his flasher, so I pulled in behind him just to see if he needed any help, and said he ran out of gas. And he had somebody coming for him, but this is not the time of year that you want to run out of gas. And so make sure that your car is in good working condition. The other thing is to make sure that you keep an emergency kit with you in your car at all times. And just think through, essentially think through what do you need to have if you are stranded for 12 hours along the road. And so it's the normal things like some food and some extra gloves, and make sure that you have salt or some kind of sand, even kitty litter to help get your car out, a phone charger and your cell phone. But then also think through what are the things that are unique to you that you might need. Are you a diabetic? Do you wear contact lenses? Yes. Those type of things. And just put those in a kit, put them in your trunk, leave them there, hope that you never need them, but just in case you do, you'll have them with you. You can go to justdrivepa.com, and there's a whole list there of everything you should put in an emergency kit. For I think both of you guys know my sidekick, Mike Toludo. For Christmas a couple years ago, I got him one of those kits and said, put this in your car there. And so it's good to have. And jumper cables and just anything that you would need if you're stranded alongside the road.
And Mike is the safety press officer, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. One of the times that we did get a stranded news crew overnight, low on gas, we had to kind of ration how often we started the car
for heat
to run for heat. But that was a situation where heading back from an assignment, bad weather, and it was quite a ways out, and tank's getting lower, and all of a sudden you hit the problem.
I know. Yeah, it's true.
And there's a lot more today as well with technology that helps prevent those type of things. I don't know how long ago this was, but
this was years back.
You probably didn't have a cell phone with you at the time.
We did. As a matter of fact,
okay.
I remember calling the county officials where we were stuck.
Okay. Was it one of those? When you say cell phone, like a big cell phone?
Like a walkie-talkie, probably.
This was close enough. We had a regular cell phone, but it was happening. That particular event was Schuylkill County, and they basically said what you said earlier was they couldn't get to us unless they used ATVs, which of course couldn't really solve the problem for all the people that were backed up. But you mentioned the technology, and one of the things that I will do if I've got to go someplace and the weather is questionable is I love the fact that you have cameras set up in key locations, and I can actually punch up those cameras and watch what is happening right there at this time on my laptop.
But not only that, now the detector loops with PA 511, which they just unveiled at the farm show. So that's a big deal too.
What is this?
What are you talking about with the detector?
PA 511 with the going from red to green to yellow on the interstate. That's the internet, PA 511.
Yeah, and the other thing that we're able to use the 511pa.com, either the app or the website, you can go on there now and you can track. You've always been able to, not always, for the last few years you've been able to track where the snowplow has been. If you go click on the snowplow, it'll give you. Now the actual road is color-coded. That's new this year, where the road is color-coded, and it will show that a truck has gone past that area more recently, and so you can use that. Another way that we're using technology this year, you may have seen that the National Weather Service came out with, they're now sending out alerts for snow squalls. And this is something new that they're doing. And the way it used to work was we would get a report that says there's going to be 6 inches of snow in northeastern Pennsylvania. Well, it might be that Susquehanna County is getting 9 inches and lower Luzerne County is getting flurries. And you know, it was just sort of this blanket that snow's coming in. And so what that meant was our Luzerne County crew would send all of their crews out to all the locations, and they would end up having to cover the whole county. With a snow squall, that's a very intense amount of snow that comes in a very short period of time. You know, you're driving along and it's sunny, and all of a sudden it just downpours snow that comes in.
You get a whiteout suddenly.
This whiteout, and we've had fatalities that have occurred because of those. Because when it happens, you get to the point where you just can't see anything in front of you, and people's instinct is to slam on their brakes, and even if they're in the interstate. And this happened I think last year.
Pile-up in Schuylkill County.
In Schuylkill County, exactly. And that happened because the initial cars, they stop in the road. I mean, it's scary. You can't see anything. So instead of trying to pull off the side of the road, they stop, and that's when the cars come up from behind and hit them, and we had some fatalities that took place. This year, the National Weather Service is able to pinpoint some of these snow squalls. They send the alerts to us. That is then tied in with our message boards, and we're able to send, like even when we get the alert from the National Weather Service, it'll say a snow squall in this region, activate message boards 9, 7, and 14. And that will tell us that we can then, when you see those message boards on the interstate, that we can tell people, hey, there's a snow squall coming in, be cautious about that. So we're doing whatever we can to help utilize technology to make it safer for the motorist as they're traveling.
I've seen those message boards, and you want to pay attention to them. And of course, when there's nothing happening, they usually just have a safety type message, a reminder that you've got to have your seatbelts buckled or something like that. But when there is an actual alert of some sort, it's your best warning. And in my case, if I were to see something that up ahead, warning of something up ahead, I would probably get myself off the interstate. In terms of not being stranded. The one real downfall about the interstate is that you are caught.
That's the problem. You're usually next to a sign that says next exit 7 miles. That's the problem, you know, where you're stopped. You can't turn around, you can't do anything. That's the problem.
The other way that we do use those, and it's not specific to PennDOT, but we work with the Pennsylvania State Police for Amber Alerts. And so if there ever is an Amber Alert that goes out, or a missing child, or even a missing senior, those type of things, we're able to immediately go in and put up an Amber Alert too, to watch.
License,
you may see
numbers,
those, watch out for this car. And those have been very, very effective as well. So just, you know, technology is always changing and improving, and so we're doing what we can to try to stay up with the times and to utilize utilize technology to make it safer for the public.
Sure. How about general road conditions? There's been a lot of construction work over the past couple of years. Right here in Scranton, of course, the big thing was the Harrison Avenue Bridge. Now that new bridge is in place and open.
Yes.
But of course the old bridge still sits there.
It is,
which
yes.
is something you guys have got to face.
And the new bridge is not completely done because where the on this side, the Scranton side of the bridge, where the old bridge and the new bridge come together there, it's very close, and so they can't really finish all the work on the new bridge because they know that when they tear down the old bridge, they don't want shrapnel flying, and so what they will be doing is the end piece of both ends of the old bridge they'll take down by crane. The center portion they're going to take down with explosives, and so they're going to we're looking at taking that down in the spring sometime, and then have that whole job wrapped up probably by the fall of this year of 2018.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's that original bridge was built in 1920, I think it was, and it's lived a good life. A lot of people look at it and they're
very
sorry.
heavy use.
Oh,
yes.
Huge, yeah, tremendous.
Nice job, though. They emulated the old bridge with the parapets and period lighting. Nice job on the design.
They brought in the Historical Society and brought in a lot of that aspect of the old bridge, and I was really excited because that bridge is just the gateway into Scranton.
Right.
And I said to somebody one time that the new bridge looks more like the original than the original bridge does.
Right.
Because over the years, some of the parapets that were on there, some of the lights, some of the decorative features have fallen off. But when you go back, and we worked with the Historical Society, and when you look at what the original bridge looked like, the current bridge looks more like the original than the new bridge looks more like the original.
And by the way,
they
tried, as you well know, to make the old bridge with the arch, but it would have cost probably $8 billion to emulate the old plan. So they had to do it a little different with steel beams, but they had it in mind.
One of the secrets on those arches that I will tell you is that they were hollow.
I know, they're filled with sawdust and wood and that's amazing.
It was built in the 1920s.
Isn't that incredible?
You're just heading into the Depression.
There was no inspections back then, not as rigid as they are now. So if they could cut a corner in 1920, they did.
Yeah, and so I don't think people would want us building it just like they did back then.
No, you're right.
There's a sentimental value to it, but when you really start looking at it from an engineering standpoint. But on the flip side, you look and you say the thing has lasted for almost 100 years, and what it took to build a bridge like that back in 1920, it's just amazing, amazing to see. That bridge, if you're familiar with the Turnpike Bridge in Clark Summit, how high that is?
Yes.
The Harrison Avenue Bridge, the Freedom Bridge, yes. That is, the Harrison Avenue Bridge is higher than the Turnpike Bridge. Most people don't realize that because when you go over it, you don't really see what's below you.
That's right.
But if you stand there and actually look down, Harrison Avenue is higher than the Freedom Bridge in Clark Summit. And I mean, that's just, it's completely open there in Clark Summit, so you can look up and see how high it is. But if you ever stood below the Harrison Avenue Bridge, as we've gone down there, or stood on the top and looked down, you realize how high it is. And you think, they built that back in 1920, and what it took to build that. Just
wooden ladders and
unbelievable.
platforms. It's unbelievable.
It really is, yeah.
There's also been a lot of bridge work done in terms of interstate in the area over the past couple of years. And they seem wider to me. Is this an illusion? Or
No, it's not an illusion. And let me point out, just so everybody hears this, there is no bridge work anywhere on Interstate 81 in Lackawanna or Luzerne County right now. This is the first time that I can say that since I've been at PennDOT for 7 years, and really as long as I can remember.
The last was in Pittston Township, I
It was, yeah.
Just completed.
We just completed that. And so we did a number, I think it was 18 bridges just in the last few years, where they were actually 2 different contracts down in Pittston. They were doing all that work. You move just north of there, we replaced another 2 bridges as part of the airport project. They replaced some interstate bridges. Then just north of Dunmore, they did the work up there. They replaced bridges. Unfortunately, there are 67 bridges between Nanticoke and Clark Summit. And so everybody always asks, and I ask, why don't we widen Interstate 81? Well, all the traffic, why can't we widen it? Well, the problem is you don't want to widen an interstate only to go down to a 2-lane bridge, to a 3-lane road, to a 2-lane bridge. Yeah, right. It would cause the traffic to be worse than what it is now. And so the first step is to replace all of the bridges. And when we replace those bridges, we do replace them with 3-lane bridges.
3-lane.
Yeah, and so when you're going down, notice how wide wide they are 3-lane bridges. In the short term, that benefits us because if we have to go back in and do maintenance on these bridges before Interstate 81 is a 3-lane bridge, because we have 3 lanes there, we can move all the traffic over, work on the lane that we need
keep
to,
2 lanes open.
and keep 2 lanes.
Right.
And so there's some immediate benefits to us, but the reason that we're making them all 3-lane bridges when we replace them is because that way, in the future, hopefully when we're able to widen Interstate 81, the bridges will be done, and that has to be done before we widen.
So that could happen. 81 could go to.
That's what we're looking long term at
Yeah,
that. But again,
absolutely.
it's one of those long term where we have to. It's a step-by-step process. But yes, in the long term plan is the plan
And
to
actually,
eventually
from an
make
engineering
81.
standpoint, the bridges are the toughest part to widen. So
Oh, yeah.
Thank goodness that they're done, because the rest just involves taking down the rock or the median and filling that in. So the roadway costs a lot less than it does to widen these bridges to
Okay.
3 lanes and 2
Yeah.
shoulders.
And when they
That's your
started doing the
5 lanes.
math on it, they realized that to make it into a 3-lane bridge was essentially about the same cost as they used to have to go through. And I think they did this at the
Rocky Glen.
yeah, I mean they'll do this
They
every so
built
often.
a temporary bridge around
yeah,
it.
and so
Yeah,
they
right.
that used to be sort of the policy where they said, well, we can't afford a 3-lane bridge, so we build a temporary bridge. And they came along and said, well, instead of doing that, why don't we just first thing you do is you come in, you add a 3rd lane to the current bridge, and then you move all the traffic to that, and then you move the traffic over. And so you'll notice sometimes, like in Pittston, where we had that split where you
Yes.
took the traffic, what was happening there was they were working on the centerpiece. So you add a 3rd lane, and then you move all the traffic to these 2,
I
replace
see.
that one, you move all the traffic there and replace the center, and that's why the traffic was splitting the way it was, because you're adding that 3rd lane in there. But they found it was essentially about the same cost to just make the 2 lanes into a 3rd lane, because what we have to do is maintain 2 lanes of traffic while we're working on the bridge.
Right.
The other thing people say to me is, when I was in Vietnam, and I'm a veteran and I understand this, when I was in Vietnam, we could put a bridge in a weekend, and it takes PennDOT 10 years to do it. Yeah, you didn't have all the environmental stuff. You didn't have to
right.
maintain 2 lanes of traffic for 80,000 cars a day. There's a whole bunch of stuff that
The
we didn't
environmental
have to.
nowadays, you can't dump your used Kool-Aid on the side of the road, and there's
yeah,
a problem.
there's a lot of-
Clean up.
Am
It's
I
true.
wrong? Is it not a regulation where there's certain bridges, rural bridges, that you can't do certain work on because of the aquatic life?
The trout, yeah.
Definitely.
You normally have a
Definitely.
restriction between October 31st, I forget the exact dates on it, but yeah, a lot of your bridges, you have to stay out of the water because of trout restrictions.
And these are things people that want the work done don't really know all the time. That
In
these are
Susquehanna County,
some of
we
the
had to
things
do
you
work
face.
for bridges in Susquehanna County when I was with the gas industry, because we wouldn't want to. We had to do it at night because we didn't want to disturb the bat population.
I was just gonna say
that's
the
right.
bats.
The bat. People say, "Are you joking?" We had to work at night because you couldn't disturb the bats.
Down in Luzerne County, in the Nanticoke area, they're building the South Valley Parkway, and they spent countless hours and a lot of money because they found that there were bats in some of the cliffs there where they were working. And if you notice, when you're driving, if you ride on the South Valley Parkway,
Cross Valley.
the Cross Valley
Yeah.
down there now, if you look up, you'll see some huge rocks that are placed up on the side of the mountain. And if you have to be sort of observant and be looking for it when you're in that area. But those were put there for the bats. And it's a new, I think there's 2 or 3 up there, and they're huge rocks. I mean, it wasn't like somebody carried a couple rocks to the top of the mountain. Huge,
That
huge
was a
rocks.
project in itself. For
It
the
was,
bats.
yeah. And so,
And again, these are things that people that want work
right.
done, want their highways clear, want them open, don't really understand. Now, we're down to about 4 minutes. I got one more question. I think I'll ask it and then I'll leave and let you guys talk about it. And I'm going to get into roundabouts. Because I still am personally, I am not a fan of them, okay? Let me be totally clear. I don't love them. I go into them thinking to myself, the other guy's coming to kill me. And I've got to be very, very careful
That
here.
could be, though, David. You
Yeah,
never
it
know.
may
It
be.
could not be the roundabout's fault.
You got, is there one going up in Dallas?
yes, yep.
And also along
The South Valley
Middle
Parkway.
Road?
LCC.
Yeah, the one I was
South
talking
Valley
about,
Parkway.
South Valley Parkway.
Yeah.
Middle Road,
That's it.
basically.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
So what's the status with those?
Well, the one thing about the Dallas roundabout, I think one of the biggest regrets that I have within PennDOT in dealing with roundabouts is that the very first ones that we unveiled for this community in northeastern Pennsylvania were the ones at the airport. And I say that because there were 3 back-to-back
Yeah,
to back,
yeah.
and they're multi-lane roundabouts.
Yes.
That's the most difficult situation. The one in Dallas is a single-lane roundabout where essentially you get in it, you just loop through, and most of the traffic is going north or south there. And it's really, really going to help with the
It
traffic
is.
flow
It's
in that area.
It's a 5-point intersection
is,
to begin
yeah.
with anyway.
Yeah,
So
and
what's
so,
the difference?
People have this sort of an intuitive gut reaction to roundabouts. In PennDOT, we have to deal with math. And so the math tells you two things. They are more efficient. They carry more traffic than a traditional intersection. With an intersection, there's a lot of other reasons, but at a traditional intersection where somebody is just stopped at a red light, they are, I forget the numbers, about 30% more efficient. If people don't believe this, there's that show Mythbusters, where they put this to the test, and then so if they say, I don't want to believe James May from PennDOT because he's with the government, Google, YouTube, whatever, that show, and they came out and they said, yeah, they're more efficient. And, believe it or not, safer.
They eliminate a hard intersection and hard intersection signals.
Well, I can see that, but on the other side of the coin, if I'm at a traffic light, I know I have to stop until it tells me I'm allowed to go. And the roundabouts, I get into it, and again, I've got somebody coming at me or near me at all times. It isn't just a stop or a go.
Right, and it's that yield. And I always say that at a traditional intersection, if you're in a crash there, you may lose your life. If you're in a crash in a roundabout, you might lose your mirror.
That's right.
And because
everything's moving.
The crashes that occur, and there's a tremendous reduction. I mean, almost 100% reduction that we've seen so far in fatal crashes that occur, because you eliminate that T-bone. I mean, you may stop, but the other guy may not, or you may not see the red light, or for whatever reason. I mean, people are killed at traffic signals all the time because you have that T-bone where somebody gets hit. It's sort of emerging together, and if somebody does bump into you, there really is this just this scraping of the cars. And you know what? Everybody, years ago when we were first talking about the roundabouts at the airport, and again, the airport are the most difficult ones. I've not seen any reports so far of all of these crashes that are taking place at the airport. They're difficult when you first go to it. It's tough. We did put the airplanes on the ground to kind of lead you to the airport, but we're not seeing, everybody was afraid and everybody was predicting to me, you wait, when those are in, we're going to see all sorts of crashes down there.
There's been no major mishaps.
It really hasn't.
We'll bring you back and we'll look at we'll look
Please no.
We'll look at the stats next time around. But it sounds like PennDOT's got a full agenda as 2018 gets underway. So thank you for sharing some of the information with us.
Pleasure.
Thanks, James.
And my email is jamay@pa.gov, jamay@pa.gov. And I know there's a lot of questions out there, but if people have questions that they want to follow up with don't hesitate to shoot me an email.
Okay. James May
Thanks,
from
James.
PennDOT, thank you. And of course, Rusty, thanks for
Good to see you next.
sitting in
next
the
week.
saddle there.
Yes,
Mark
indeed.
McGlory,
Thanks,
thanks
Mark.
for keeping us in focus. I'm David DeCosmo for ECTV Live. Until we see you again next week, here's hoping all your news is good.